Are we trying to teach them English or are we trying to learn Chinese? Asia at that time was contributing 33% to the business, but the number of Asian talents was less than 4% globally. The competencies we wanted to develop were the specific profile for Westerners. Is that how we are seeing Asians as well? Unconscious bias is both a science and a choice. In order to avoid bias, you need to talk to people that you are not comfortable with. The only way that they will diminish the role of HR is if we allow them to do it. If I give you 30% year-on-year increase, then in the next 2 years, all of us will not have a job anymore. The question is, how will this Southeast Asia businesses not fall under the same fate of Western big multinationals? Will they keep to saying that Asians for Asians alone? Or will they open up to really embrace diversity?
You've been quite around Southeast Asia in different leadership roles, in different HR roles. When you look back at those 25 years, you've worked in HR in Southeast Asia. What's the moment that made you say maybe like, oh, wow, that's the reason why I'm in this role. That's the reason why I'm in HR.
Every time that I get to see an impact, for example, I was in the Jollibee group. I was talking to the union and they're requesting for something. And then they said that we know that when we reach out to you, if you say if it's possible, you will do everything that you can. But if it's not possible, then you also tell us straight up. That really made me realize that working in HR is all about impacting people. And if we walk the talk, if we're true to our word and they know who we are, then that's why we're here for. And then the other one maybe was working with senior leaders and then looking at how do you develop people. Like I learned how to do executive coaching and you get to talk to them. It was a very difficult VP for technology to the point that he was even questioning my capability. Why am I handling difficult or confidential information? But then when I got to work with him and I was even coaching him, I left the company and then he goes to come back and message me and say, can you come back and just do this for us? So the fact that I'm also impacting on that level, that actually, okay, I'm in the right role.
Cool. Thank you. So what do you do at this moment? What maybe not just the one you do, because I saw your role. So do you do this and other things? What's your complete contribution to Malaysia and Southeast Asia at the moment?
So aside from being the HR head, I do a lot of speaking engagements as well. I talk about inclusion and diversity, which is a major passion of mine. I talk about agile HR. I talk about strategic rewards, right? Sometimes we all think that rewards is only about getting paid and getting benefits and all of that. But there's actually a way to make it sexy. Overall, in Malaysia, going through my round of speaking engagement, and I'm also part of the CEO Action Network DEI workstream. To me, that is very dear to me because one, is a woman leader, and we all know the reputation of Asian countries. The industries also that I've worked in, I've been in a tobacco company, I've been in manufacturing, and women leaders are too few to count. I am Catholic, but I am also half Muslim. So my father is a Muslim. So again, that element of diversity, I walk the talk. I'm also a single mom. Being able to have all of those personal elements and have that as a precondition to my contributions, to either the company or the nation that I work in is very important to me. I also teach. I love teaching. I'm an adjunct professor at Asian Institute of Management, which is a top-tier business school in the Philippines. So it's like your NCAD in Singapore.
That's cool. You do so much. How old is your kids?
I have actually 6 children. I have 2 human children.
Okay.
I have 3 dogs and 1 kitty cat.
Okay.
All of them are currently in the Philippines. My son is finishing university. My daughter is working. I really put her up there in terms of working on renewable energy and all of that now. So she's starting on that. And then I have 3 dogs. I have 2 Siberian Husky and 1 Shih Tzu. And I have 1 Tabby cat.
Wow, that's super impressive. Big family. For the people who don't know you, you're the country, people, and culture head at Dutch Lady. And I was researching Dutch Lady to understand how far back it went. It's 62 years in nourishing Malaysians, and it was the first company for outside of the Netherlands for Friesland Campina.
For Friesland Campina,
Yeah.
yes. And that one of the reasons why I also agreed to move here. So the company I was with in the Philippines, Alaska Milk Corporation, is also part of Friesland Campina. And then they asked me to move here towards the end of 2023, and I said yes. I think Friesland Campina, in terms of its purpose about nourishing people and planet, that is very much aligned with my own personal value with this, which is nurturing as well. And Friesland Campina has been, for the longest time, really supporting that. Now we do have a school milk program here, and I'm sure you know that hunger is one of the major problems of the world. In Asia itself, right, 70% of kids are malnourished. In Malaysia alone, that's also a big reality. The purpose of making sure if you get to feed a child a glass of milk a day, that actually is a step towards having a healthy life. And a healthy life is a step towards a healthy future. And if we can do that 1 kid at a time, I would like to do that day in and day out.
Got it. From a business standpoint, what is the goal of Dutch Lady in Malaysia, for instance? Is it manufacturing excellence? Is it gaining market share? I have no clue, basically. So before we go into the HR world, what is the overarching goal that you have?
It's all of everything that you said. It is the number 1 dairy company here in Malaysia. But of course, we know how competition is nowadays. We cannot be lazy number ones. We need to make sure that we are consistent with that. We are not yet number 1 on infant nutrition, which is something that we are aspiring to be, because we want to be the premier and the go-to preferred dairy milk at every stage of life, from infant to gum, growing up milk, to teenagers, to adult, and all of that. So we are on our way for that.
You guys started as condensed milk for children, no? Back in the beginning. So
it's
you lost
no
your number 1 spot.
longer, yeah, but that's no longer a product here in Malaysia. So the main products are infant nutrition. So we do have that. We carry that. Growing up milk, gum, we call it growing up milk. So gum milk. We also have that, no? And then also fresh milk, UHT milk, flavored milk, chocolate milk, we also have that. We also, so one of also the reasons I came is that we just set up the IR 4.0. So it's a high-tech manufacturing facility, and now also a distribution center beside it. So to your point, in terms of product excellence, both product execution and product excellence is also what we aim for. So we want to be the lighthouse across Southeast Asia of an IR 4.0 or eventually an IR 5.0 manufacturing facility.
Okay, super. So we already now, you are raising the bar, so we can ask you questions about peak performance a bit later. Super. Any questions that have been driving you throughout your career? And maybe to frame it a bit differently, I saw your journey a little bit, just what you let me see through LinkedIn, right? So you started in legal management, business management, legal, then you moved into industry relations, and then more and more HR stuff. Why this choice? What led you to care about HR? You did legal. You could have done, I don't know, M&A. Why this interest? Yeah.
True. When I was in university, I fell in love with labor law. I had a very amazing professor, and she's now actually the secretary of the Ministry of Labor in the Philippines. No? So it actually started with her. I know I'm very passionate about people. And of course, at that time, my only ambition was to be a lawyer, to be honest. And I didn't realize that there is so much more. And how can I bridge both my passion on people and my love for law together? So labor law plus passion for people equals HR. That's how I see it. And it all started with that. No? So I had 2 very inspiring labor law professors. And from there, that actually started me understanding, okay, if I do understand labor law. How do I do if I want to do this as a profession and I'm not a lawyer, what's the next best thing? And the next best thing was going into HR. So that actually allowed me to expand my know-how from just doing and understanding labor law to actually branching out to compensation and benefits, to talent management, to learning and development, leadership development training. Now, inclusion and diversity is also a very big element.
What's one belief about HR you held early in your career that since then you changed your mind about it?
Wow. Okay. Because my framing from the start was that I was disciplined in law. In law, it's either black or white. But in HR, actually, it's not just black and white. There are a lot of other colors. It's not even just gray. And me being able to embrace that was very important and very critical. And the one that helped pivot my thinking and mindset about that is that I am not talking about law or the provisions of the law, but I'm actually working with people. And people are a lot of different facets. It's not just a black or a white, but there are different colors to a human being. And that is what makes HR very interesting. But don't get me wrong, okay? Black and white is still very important, but it depends on what the situation or when it's called for. But at the end of the day, at the heart of HR is human. And that human is multifaceted and multicolored.
Because of the law background and what you liked about law, and you did say it yourself, it was more black and white. When did that transition happen and how painful was it? What's the trigger for you to start seeing the colors?
One of my law professors was a lawyer for farmers in the Philippines. And his story opened me up to say that it's not just a black or a white. There is so much more to a human being. And yes, the law is there to safeguard humanity, but there is something so much more. Why do people do things that they do? And it is my job to understand who they are, what makes them tick, why they're doing that, and see how all of this come into play.
Okay. Any other realizations? Those ones are very interesting, right? Because usually they help others who have not walked your steps to retrace and say, oh, in order for me to be a strategic HR, I need to see the black and the white and the colors.
True.
Any other concept that you think you acquired over those years, it took you maybe pain, and we could save that pain to younger HR people?
True. I wouldn't call it pain, but I would call it a learning experience. In any career, as you grow in that career, as you take on more responsibility, as you take on more leadership, as you grow, people can either see their growth as power or people can see it as empowerment. So that's something that I've known. When I was moving up, expanding my scope and all of that, I was very idealistic. This is how HR has to be done. It's all about people and all of that. And as I had experiences wherein I had, sorry for the French, I had an asshat boss. I had asshat bosses also. But that's just reality of it, So I learned the difficult way. That's just reality. As we grow in our careers, as you go through corporate ladder, you will experience different types of people and not everyone will like you. So you will have asshat bosses. The big question is, how do you treat that? Do you treat that as someone who disempowers you? Or do you treat that as someone who empowers you to be so much better? Sometimes it's just about work. Fantastic. Sometimes they would be personal about it. So the bigger question is, will you be the bigger person not to take it personally, right? And just focus on what needs to be done, but still show the respect because at the end of the day, he or she is your boss. And just focus on what your job is all about and to do so much more than what your job requires. I always believe that my performance shows who I am as a person. To me, do I perform mediocre? Do I just do what I'm supposed to do as 1 to 10? Or do I do so much more? because I know that I am so much more than my position title or my salary grade.
Love
So I
it.
think that's the other one. And it's not that easy, yeah? And
No.
everyone will feel that, oh, I feel that I am discriminated on and all of that. Remember, I'm female, I'm Asian, right? So it's not that. And then at a certain point in time, I was young. I was very young. Now, I'm on the other side of the spectrum. No? I'm one of the more experienced ones. How do I pivot that? Do I have a victim mentality, which I don't have? Or do I use all of that so that I can empower myself and empower others as well? So that's where I started, no? As you go, you either look at it as a perspective of power or a perspective of empowerment.
I didn't understand the power empowerment, but the story you put together is amazing. And I think it's a good thing to keep, it's like those rainy days papers. When you
Yeah.
have a bad day with your boss, we should listen to you in those the specific words you just said.
Thank
Lovely.
you.
I think you already spoke about it, but any other, or maybe correct me, in terms of what you're trying to influence, because you have a special role right now in the community as an experienced leader, as someone in a leadership position and someone on stages. What I take away from what I've read and what you just said, there is the diversity and inclusion, but from grounding into your own reality. So not a philosophical concept, but look, I am one of those and I'm trying to get accepted in the workplace. You talk about meaningful transformation, how to transform, and then strategic rewards, employee-centered rewards is a different word for the same thing, and then partnership with leadership. Those any other topic that are fun to you, and can you tell me a bit about those that I just said?
I think I've shared now most of them. So diversity and inclusion is very key and very important for me. Like to what you said, it is because I believe that I am a walking DEI. I'm a female leader in the industries that I worked in and all of that, a single mom at that. But there is so much more to diversity and inclusion. And to me, the critical fundamental element, it's not just about women empowerment or about race. No, it's not about that. It's about unconscious bias. How do we unlock that? That I'm very passionate about. No? I teach about it. I talk about it. And unconscious bias is both a science and a choice, to be honest. No? Unconscious bias is because our biases, we have been conditioned for that. How you were born, the family that you're in, the schools that you've been, not your all experiences that shapes our brain. But there is what you call a system 1, system 2. Your system 1 is that, the reason why you walk left, right, because you've been conditioned this way. The reason why you eat with a spoon, or maybe for you, it's a knife and a fork, no? For Asians, it's a spoon and a fork, right?
For me too these days. I
Fantastic.
transitioned.
You're transitioned already. Fantastic, right? Because we have been conditioned that way. A, B, C, you will say A to Z, and you know what it is because you've been schooled that way. And that's the system 1. But when we're talking of people, when we are in actual life situations, it's not always that way. So our system 2 needs to do that break. Our brains are lazy. Our brains want efficiency. That's the reason they will always go to system 1. They will always do what is the fastest, the quickest, the most efficient way. Our system 2 is our logic. Our system 2, okay, is that the right way to do it? Is there any other way to do it? What else can be done? So our system 2 is the one that gives that pause. And in managing, navigating unconscious bias, that's very important. So we need to be aware, we need to rewire our brains that in different situations, our system 2 needs to kick in. Asking ourselves, is it the right thing to do? Asking ourselves, is that the right way? Or even my favorite question nowadays, what else? So because then it helps our brain to think differently. And that's what unlocking unconscious bias is really all about. So I'm very passionate about that as well. We talked about agile.
Thank you. Just before you move there, agile. I didn't talk about that. That's one of them as well. But before we go there, thank you, because you're linking two topics that I like a lot. The first one, though, I always find it a bit hard to navigate because of the politically correct answers that are always expected on this kind of channel, but even in the workplace. And also because the answers are very deep. And I think you went to it. It's very quick, like system 1, system 2, which is the way you choose it. Unconscious biases. Maybe staying there for people to understand unconscious biases. How do you put me in front of my unconscious biases right now, or as an audience? How
True.
would you help people understand what is an unconscious bias?
True. I always ask, so can you do this? Can you put your hands together?
Okay.
Okay. Do you have left over right? Your thumb. Is it
Yeah,
left over right or right
Yes.
over left?
Left over right.
Okay. Can I ask you to do right over left?
Yes.
No, just the thumb. Just the thumb. Just the thumb.
Sorry.
Just
Okay.
the thumb. So
I
you
did.
do
I
that.
did.
Okay. And then let's chat for a bit. So how does this feel? It feels what? Weird, right?
Uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable, right? So earlier, that's your bias. That's normally how you live your life. Doing this, and that's a request from someone, and staying that way will be your decision. Swimming in your not comfortable, stay there for a few minutes, right? And then I'll ask you another question. But I will respond to your answer also. This is the phase one of my answer. Okay?
I love
So,
it. Okay.
normally, how I would address unconscious bias, no? How would I put audience there is one, have you really understood yourself about what your biases are? So knowing and understanding what your biases are very important for you to be able to navigate what that is. No? When I actually teach this or when I do workshops on unconscious bias, I have my participants take on the Harvard Implicit Association test. It's a freeware, it's a free test. No, I can give you the link and you may want to look at that. They actually look at different biases of people. And it can be gender preference, it can be race, no? It can even be about food or anything. There's a long list, no? When you look at that list, you will then realize, oh my God, there's a lot of biases in the world. That's the first one. So awareness that everyone has a bias is key. The second is knowing and understanding what your biases are. So if you get to know and understand them, then you would be able to help navigate that. The next one, the step 3, is then we need to be aware of our system 1 and system 2. Knowing and understanding your biases, if you are aware of them, if you face a situation, then you can now kick in your system 2 because you are aware that you have a bias in that situation. And then, of course, you will have bias kickbacks. No, that's what I call them. No, of course, you cannot say that overnight. No, I'm already good. Right? I will be able to manage my bias. In order to avoid bias kickbacks, you need to talk to people that you are not comfortable with. So what do I mean by that? So for example, natural tendency is that you will only talk to people and you will get to be friends with people who are similar to you. Correct? So you need to force yourself to be comfortable with people who are not similar to you. If I ask you generally on a day-to-day basis, who are you more comfortable to talk to? Your friends. Have you had opportunity? But I think you are. I think you are someone that can just go down in a coffee shop and just talk to people who are different from you. You are able to manage your bias. But generally, people are not. It's human nature to only talk to people that you're comfortable with. So we need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Okay. So how
I'm
is
still
it
like
with
this.
your finger? Yes.
Can I stop?
Yes, you can remove it now. Because now you're not uncomfortable anymore, right? It takes a while, but that's what change is, and that's what is needed to manage unconscious bias. Make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. And I think a follow up on S1 and S2, you talked about it already. You said it's because of efficiency. If you plug in your S2 all the time, you are exhausted. So you need this ability to know when to plug it, when to not plug it, and live with the biases, because also that's the reason why you're hired, right? You're hired because of your ego and how you've been wired over the years. But one question to you, and I always like to take concept to the end of them, right? To me, it's Buddhahood or it's Jesus consciousness, whatever you want to, Christ consciousness, whatever religion you have, is like those. S2 is basically presence as well, being completely here in the moment and responding freely to this particular moment. But basically, my question to you would be, is it possible to be always in S2 and without being tired?
No. And actually, the reality is a lot of the things that we do are S1. And we just need to be conscious and aware that we need to use our S2 on specific situations. Like, for example, in HR, in recruitment, in interviewing. I always ask line managers when you interview, it's not just S1. When we're doing calibration of candidates, I just remember now I was talking to one of our regional directors, and then I was saying, no, we were comparing candidates, and then she was saying, no, I don't like this I rather have the other one. I want more energy, blah, 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 blah. And then I asked her a question. If you are to work with a group of people that are the same as you, how does that feel for you? Okay. And then she stopped. And then I asked her, you are so highly energized. You have a very strong vision. Okay. If your HR, because we're hiring for an HR, if your HR is the same as you and will not be able to execute because you are both looking at it long term, how does that feel? And then she stepped back. And I said, I think you need to rethink the profile that you want. Because if you are on a strategic and energy and all is like at a 99, do you want your HR to be at a 99? Or do you want on that strategic, your HR is on an 80 or 75, but the execution is on a 90? Because what is it that you need? And then she stopped. And then she said, you are absolutely right. We can use our systems too in different situations. So she was using her systems one because I need someone in my team who can run with me and all of that, right? Which is fine. I can understand that. Nah? But then maybe you need to look deeper and long term. What do you actually need? Do you need someone that's a mirror image of you? Or do you need someone who can actually work with you to make what you want, to have what you want done and achieved?
And for S1, S2, you have the struggle for each individual. And now in this particular setting, you're describing a situation in which you come in as a reminder of the S2 system that needs to be plugged in. How, as organizations, can we be more S2 or be more intentional of when we use S1? Because it's a conscious thing, right? Okay, we allow ourselves to be S1 or we allow ourselves to be S2, but this conversation doesn't exist most of the time. I mean, it's been a while. I'm not reminded of S1 and S2, and I've been in this role for 7 months. So
Okay.
how can we be reminded of this more often?
Definitely. The way I've done it also is I've integrated unconscious bias on all the different HR cycles. So recruitment is one. Even when creating a job offer, I also include that in. I always ask something, a different question. During talent review is the other one, right? So I'm sure a lot of companies, organizations will have 12 bucks, 9 bucks, no, whatever, how many boxes, diamond. For us, it's diamond. But the key question all the time, I will always ask is, do we want our high flyers? Do we look at our high flyers on the same lens? So we need to be very mindful of that. So during talent review conversations, that was my job. And then I prompt all of the leaders, that is also their job, to make sure that they ask themselves, even on designing interventions or projects and all of that. No? So I want to share this story, because this was a systems to thinking for me. I was with my previous company, Philip Morris, and I was the regional talent manager. We were setting up a talent development infrastructure to fast track the development of Asian talents. Why? Asia at that time was contributing 33% to the business, to 35%, but the number of Asian talents was less than 4% globally. Then you will think, this is where the business is, but then why do we don't have that many Asians, right? And then we presented to the regional president, and fantastic, He was very up for it and all. But then he asked one question, okay, which that until now really triggers me to do what I do. Are we trying to teach them English or are we trying to learn Chinese? That was his question. Am I creating, or were we creating our talent development infrastructure in the lens of a Westerner? Why? Because the competencies we wanted to develop were managerial courage, conflict management, assertiveness, the specific profile, right? For Westerners. Is that how we are seeing Asians as well? So that question, that to me was a systems to question. So in everything that I do, I always ask that question. Am I looking at this on the lens of what is expected of me? Or am I trying to understand first and see what will work and what is important also for this set of population.
Which kind of competencies came out? You said courage, assertiveness, conflict management was the Westerners one. Do
Managerial
you remember?
courage is what. So there were 10 competencies we were looking for. So managerial courage, conflict management, assertiveness.
Assertiveness.
Because Asians, again, I'm not a typical Asian. I think you've seen it. No, I'm very outspoken. I'm very eloquent. No, when I say it. But in most Asians, they will not say anything yet. They will listen. So are we using that competency of their strength of listening to understand before they do anything? I've worked with the most creative marketing directors who are Asians, to be honest, because they get the pulse of the people immediately. They get the pulse and the heart of consumers immediately. But what they do, they listen first. They listen, they need the space to think, and then when they come out with something, boom, then we create an environment that enables that.
Do you remember the terms because you remember those three terms from the competency from the Western world? Do you remember the ones from the Eastern world?
No. So what we did is when we talk of assertiveness, how is that on an Asian lens? When we talk of managerial courage, because the definition is on the Western context, right? Why is it that we say that Asians are not strong on managerial courage? But what they are strong at is respect, correct? So then we had to pivot the way we've defined those competencies and still leveraging on what the strengths are. And as a reason, I pivoted on using a lot more on strengths.
This problem is a problem that every company is trying to figure out, right? Asia is usually, I've been in American companies, and it's always hard to find a way to bridge the two cultures. And I was reading actually yesterday a tweet from a friend who was talking about how China is about action and not so much talking. And in the West, we are more about inspiration of vision, and then we do the action. And it goes together with what you say. So the question you're asking, are we trying to teach English or are we learning Chinese? I think it's a beautiful question. Super. So we were talking about S1, S2, and then you moved on to agile, and then I cut you.
No,
My
that's okay.
apologies.
I really love telling the story about that regional president, because to this date, that is really the one that inspires me to do what I do. The other topic that I'm also passionate about is agile. So agile way of working, when you really look to it, it's not just about technology. Technology is one. Technology enables an agile way of working. But to me, agile way of working and doing it in HR is very important. And not all companies are actually into that. No? A lot of them will say, oh, we have to have a better technology, and that's what agile is all about. But no, it's not. If you really go to the fundamental of what agile way of working is, it's about, in customer perspective, it's a customer experience. In HR, it's the employee experience. So when I started my journey on agile HR, that was how it was, right? Understanding what employee experience is all about. It's not about making the employee feel good. It's not all about making it easy all the time. No, it's not that. Or making the employee happy with giving benefits or compensation and all of that. No, that's not what it is. If you look at the employee journey, mimicking customer journey, because that's where all of this came from, right? Then we focus on moments that matter. What are moments that matter to employees? And moments that matter to employees are very anchored on the personal circumstances that they have. So if you look at the employee journey, you look at hiring, candidate experience, onboarding experience, growing experience, performing experience, exit experience, right? But in between all of that, there are personal moments that matter, that are important to people. Birthdays, when you get to be a first-time dad, when you get to marry, when you get to have your first grandchild. Those are also very important. When we look at employee experience, it's not just in the context of the organization or the business or the company, but it's in the context of the employee. And we need to remember the employee is a person. What I've done, and you've seen it, like in Alaska, when I revisited the benefits portfolio, we look at celebrating birthdays. We're a dairy company. I am partner with the number one bake shop in the Philippines. Why can I not give birthday cakes to my employees? So I actually gave that. Of course, it was pandemic. I cannot physically do a birthday cake. I gave them vouchers because the bake shop we partnered was nationwide. So I have people nationwide. They're given the vouchers and then they can go to the bake shop and claim the cake. And then they get to celebrate with their family. For Filipinos, a cake and rice noodle, having both together is an amazing celebration of birthday already. And if I can do that for a factory worker, that's amazing for his or her family already.
Yeah.
Right? That is a moment that matter. Here in Dutch Lady, I looked at and pivoted benefits. So instead of a birthday cake, I gave them birthday leave. So here it's different. A lot of people want to take leave during their birthday. So why do I give them a birthday cake? Then, okay, I took out a birthday cake. I just gave everyone additional 1 day birthday leave. That's so simple. And I pivoted benefits. Just to share, we are the first FMCG here in Malaysia who actually provided flexible benefits. Because to me, first month, everyone was telling me, oh, why is my dental benefit so small? I want it bigger. One was saying, oh, cost of glasses are skyrocketing. And then someone said, oh, I'm a single mom. I need some support on I have a very young daughter, so for daycare. And then one single employee said, I'm taking care of my parents. But because the health benefit does not include parents. If you're single, it's just yourself. So there are different ways, okay? We talk to the people, so that's the agile way. We talk to the people, we ask them what's important to them, and then we crafted and designed a flexible framework. We checked it with them. And even the amount, of course, the amount they tell me, I want more than, of course, I cannot give. No, I will say, I cannot give it. I do not have. If you want more money, you sell more, right? That's what I say. But now, this year, we've implemented the flexible benefits program. So our positioning is that your choice. Employees get to choose what benefit they would like. And that is, and I'm sure, being in Asia for a bit, how traditional and boxed some of the companies and countries are. So putting this in is already a huge step in inclusion and diversity. And doing it in an agile way is very important. Agile HR is all about employee experience and really looking at moments that matter.
I love it. Thank you so much. One question that kind of goes back to earlier. You talked about integrity at some point. You talked about your experience with the union and that they could trust you saying what it would be, whether it was a positive news or bad news. I think it goes with how do you balance being a people advocate with being a business partner? It's the same topic of integrity. So let me know how you manage this here.
Yeah. It's on one organization. Business wasn't doing well. At the end of the day, it's really the journey is that we need to really let go of people. Because if we don't, so there were a lot of fat out there in the organization, and we really need to cut that fat so that we can stabilize the business, so that we can progress so much more, right? When I designed the redundancy program, the element of care was there. We need to tell the people, we need to give it to them upfront. It's a sad reality. The business is not doing well. We need to do this. But we will do this with a heart. The package that we created, it's not just about what their severance package is, but also helping them prepare afterwards. So I had programs about resume writing for those people who are still employable. We had training programs on interviewing. How do you manifest yourself? How do you behave? How do you dress up during an interview? How do you answer questions? So we had that. We had entrepreneurship workshops, helping them set up and all of that. We had financial literacy. We worked with banks in terms of teaching them how to do investments and all of that. Because the sad reality is that when they have money, they will buy all sorts of things without thinking of the future, thinking that the money will be there. So we need to help them with that. And then we reiterated that we have several programs wherein legacy programs. So if you have children and all of that will eventually would want to work, then we can look and assess of that. Given all parameters, if they fit, no, and it's equal amongst the candidates, then they will have preference. We did put those in place, no. The other program that I did, no, it was a very difficult time, but we needed to let go of people. I designed a voluntary retirement program. It was not us dictating who needs to go, but we are giving that choice to our employees. The company, with very specific, there were specific individuals and rules that because we need to keep them, no, we had to say no. But in general, we agreed to most of it. This was around 50 people. 55 people out of the 60 people who applied. And again, the same, no? The severance component was good, but more than the severance component, it was how it was structured, providing them opportunities, providing them interventions that will help them on their next journey as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Maybe I don't think that's the case for you, but that's the case for many other people in HR. How do you find the situation for HR versus other functions, versus finance, sales, operations, the power play between the different functions? The feedback I've been getting from HR managers, HR directors sometimes is the fact that HR is most of the time subservient, very rarely strategic partner of the business. And I went quite deep on the topic with many of our guests, but what is your feeling? How do you explain it? How do you change that if it needs to be changed?
I do understand, no? And I've also had experience of that. But I'm a firm believer, and that's what I've done. So the only way that they will diminish the role of HR is if we allow them to do it. So to me, I would have a say in everything. But of course, when it comes to money, like budget and all of that, I need to understand what my role is versus how the others are. And that's where I term, if employees would want more, I want more benefits. I want higher salary increase. Then I tell them, then you need to give the company more. We cannot give what we don't have. I cannot give you a 30% raise year on year, and our business, marketing, our market share is declining, our volume is declining, our gross profit is declining, right? I cannot give that to you. There is no sense in the world that I do that. If I give you 30% year-on-year increase, then in the next 2 years, all of us will not have a job anymore. I think it's really understanding what HR's role is in the whole gamut of things. That's one. The second also is, again, no, HR, if you allow others to diminish HR, then we will be diminished in what our role is in the table. We also need to look at what we are strong at. So, for example, I know that the old notion for HR, it's all about process, it's all about documents and all of that. Right? So, during talent review, yes, or performance review, yes, I know it's a process we need to go through, but let's elevate the conversation. If we talk of performance and talent, we are not just talking for a now, we talk for the future. So we talk about talent development and we talk about succession. That is how you elevate them, HR, in that conversation. Or like what I said, no, when it comes to driving the business, no, I can imagine, no, I can remember I was sitting in a management team meeting. The discussion was about one product category. And then the question was, are we still progressing it forward? Because it's a very good GP, but everything that we're doing sucks. And we've been doing it for so long. I was there and then I said, okay, I'm in HR. I may not be in the business, but I'm a consumer. All of us are consumer. If I myself, I wouldn't want to buy that, then there is something fundamentally wrong. Then we need to ask ourselves, what is that element or what is that wrong thing that is very fundamental that even me, as part of this organization, would not want to buy it? Yeah? So the question is, are we still going to invest on that or no more? So I think we can pivot HR, but we also need to make sure that we are on a space, and we ourselves, no, we put our space that people or other functions will not diminish what our contribution are. And we can make it personal too. I hope that helps.
That does. Thank you, Lyn. Maybe moving on to peak performance, and just to understand the context, how many employees, talents do you have at Dutch Lady Malaysia at the moment?
In Dutch Lady, I have around 450 strong, both commercial and manufacturing. My top talent is very small, no? Because we're very discerning the past few years already. No? To me, good enough is just good enough. It's not going to bring you forward. So if you want to be a talent, if you are really a talent, I blowtorch you and you will still soar. That's what a talent is all about. No? Our quest now is how do we bring our core and expert talents to eventually be top talents and growth talents for us.
When you look at this vision you have, you were talking about specific, I think 4.0 AFA. I don't really know what it is, but when you look at future-ready manufacturing and excellence, how do you make the difference between a good team and a high-performing team, a good talent and a not-so-good talent?
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line? What are the factors that separate them?
So number one, and I've done this before, no? If it needs improvement, it needs improvements. We need to call it out, right? Malaysia has been very generous. Even if your needs improvement, you get to have merit increase year on year. This year, I took that out. It's not fair for your high performers. And I need to make sure that the people who are not performing really realize that they are not performing. So they need to experience the consequences of not performing. So I think that's one. So call out what is non-performing and then make sure that they experience the consequences of not being a performer. But to also put the infrastructure, and I know it's cliche, no? The performance improvement plan and all of that, but that's important. Again, the intention of the PIP is to make sure that your non-performers are actually moved to a performing context or a performing platform. If with all the help that we've given the non-performers, they still do not perform, then that's the second element. Then we need to make sure that they are called out and their non-performance is the consequences of that they experience because they need to feel it. And in humans, right, in people who are working, they will only feel it if it impacts their net take-home pay. And that's the reason this year I said, all NI, you don't have merit increase. Because it's important. It's only fair that I give more to those who are performing because I also need to retain them. So calling it out is important. Having them have the consequences is important. Making sure the infrastructure for your needs improvement or non-performing to be supported, that they can still improve. But if they still do not improve, then it's all into them. The company has done what we can. So I think that's the other element. And then the other one also is, no, and I'm re-emphasizing this because I've experienced it before, and all organizations who move into agile way of working or doing projects and all, what happens is that your high performing or high flyers normally get the big projects. Why? Because they are the go-to. Because they deliver. For my projects, I want people who will deliver. What happens is that those who can perform but are not given the opportunity are so disappointed that instead of trying, they will just leave. So that's also the other element. Yes, we can recognize high performers, we can give them projects, but we need to look at resourcing across. And we need to have a watch out to really give people the jobs or the projects with the specific skills of these people. We need to match them. And then support all of this second stringers, what you call now, or whatever. I don't want to do labels and all of that. But your core, give this core all the opportunities and all the support. And I tell you, they will also fly. Right? One of my mantra is that space to deliver. If leaders will just give space to deliver and show the support to our people, you watch out, your team will do amazing things.
Thank you. Somewhere I read you were changing the operating model at Dutch Lady, so the HR operating model. Can you tell us a little bit about which one you chose and why?
Yeah. It is a global model for us, the whole Friesland Campina. I'm just very fortunate that in Malaysia, I was able to have a microcosm of the whole thing. What do I mean by that? HR business partnership is there, of course. People solution and services, which is your shared services, is there. People advisory, okay? Capability pools, the COEs also. And I have all of that now, from talent acquisition, rewards, inclusion and diversity. The regional folks are in Malaysia. The shared services was set up in Malaysia. I'm very fortunate because of all of the countries around the world for Friesland Campina, I had zero attrition, but more than that, I also had zero redundancy. So meaning from the old model, wherein everyone reports to the HR director, right? And then now eventually move to the different pillars, I was able to place each and every one from
Yeah,
rank
cool.
and file to the manager and even one or two of our contracted people. We were able to provide them jobs as well.
Super. How do you handle such transformations, not just in HR, but across the organizations? What are your secrets? What are your insights regarding organizational transformation? And also, I want to say something. I think you got, I don't know whether it was the first role, but what I understand is you were in organizational development or
doing OD.
design very early in your career, which was to me a surprise. How did you get that? And 25 years of this, what are the boiled down insights here?
I will always say, no, that I think that's my core OD, to be honest. And when you look at the different jobs that or roles that I've been into, it's either I set up something or I transform something. And what I really leverage on is my OD experience and background. I went into it early. I don't know why, but I was handpicked by a VPHR at that time to actually be part of a think tank for HR on that organization. And that enabled me to look at a broader perspective, not very siloed. And then eventually I was part of a M&A team and all of that, no? And then a change and transformation team and all of that.
How do you explain that? How do you explain, looking back, why did they pick you? It's not junior people usually in those situations. So why you?
I was a specialist at that time, no? We need to ask him. But what I think, no, is maybe, right, I always like to think that, no, my flexibility and openness. I do not look at things in a tunnel vision. So I think that's one. I think the second one is my thirst to learn. When I want to do something or when I'm asked to do something, I want to do it. And if I don't know it, I will learn how to do it. I don't know how to do PowerPoint. To be honest, I didn't go through these workshops or what. We didn't have that during that time. I just learned it on my own. I didn't know how to use Excel. I learned it on my own. And I don't know, maybe I'm smart. I don't know.
Okay. Structured, the legal structure in your mind.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. And then just to share with you now, I always tell this about change and transformation. To me, the 3 steps also. First one is, do we know why we are doing the change? Why we are transforming? That is always important, right? Understanding the why, and not just because we need to have more efficiency, but why do we need to be more efficient? Oh, because we want to have new technology. But why do we want to have new technology? Really go to the heart of it. To me, is what the heart is. If it's an HR transformation, how are we impacting employees? That would have to be the why. Understanding, defining, articulating, and communicating the why is the first step. That's very important, because if the people who are doing the change do not even know why they're doing it, how do you expect them to actually do the change to others? And I know Simon Sinek and all of that, right? But it just makes sense, correct? If I do not know why I'm doing this, how the heck will you all want me or look at me and see if I'm doing it right or wrong? If I don't know what it is and why it is. The why is very important. Right? The second is making sure that, because change doesn't happen overnight. And change starts with the thinking of what you want to change, how you will change, the how you will implement the change, and focusing on that change. So that whole planning needs to be at least 80-20 clear. The reason why I say 80-20 is because when you are implementing the change, There's that 20% that you really do not know how people will react. You can anticipate, you can do all the stakeholder management that you can. You will be able to minimize all the risk. But remember, we are talking about people. If it's just technology, it's so easy to do that. But if you have people involved, people, they have their own minds. They have their own, they say yes or no. So that's the second one, the planning. And I think the third one is making sure you bring everyone on board. That's the reason communicate, knowing the why, etc., communicating that, doing the planning, and bringing everyone together is very important. So that's the third element.
Love it. Main problems in Asia specifically, what would you say they are in Southeast Asia for organizations?
Yeah, I don't think it's a problem, but I think it's an opportunity. If you look at the businesses across Southeast Asia, the strong and globally, the stronger businesses are coming from Southeast Asia. Your Indofoods, your Jollibee, your Abaitis. No? So there are eventually in the next 5 to 10 years going to be your global conglomerates. The question is, how will this Southeast Asia businesses not fall under the same fate of Western big multinationals? Meaning, will they keep to saying that Asians for Asians alone? Or will they open up to really embrace diversity? So I think that's a big one. The second one is in a lot of countries, we've seen it nowadays, right? And I know, sorry, but I can be a little political. A lot of this political unrest for the different countries, it's really very disturbing. Just 2 weeks ago in my own country in the Philippines, right? And you can see it now, no? My news feed, my FB, my socials is all about that. But this didn't happen just the last 2 weeks. This didn't happen just this 2025. What happened in Indonesia, in Nepal, it just didn't happen this year. It's been there. It's been persistent. And we all knew it, but we were not doing anything to fix it. So that's, I think, the second one. The question is, how do we then transition now? What is it that needs to be done? And that's very different. Because again, this didn't happen overnight. The change may or may not happen overnight as well. But it all boils down with doing the actual change and going and anchoring back on integrity and ethics. So I think that's the second element. I think the third one, and that's the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, is how can Asians really break down the barriers? Japanese wouldn't want to live outside of Japan, to be honest, but they are amazing Japanese employees or talents that I've seen. A lot of, for example, Indians or Pakistanis, they are across the world. But sometimes the unfortunate reality, they will create their own Pakistani or Indian mafias. Correct? So it goes both ways. To me, how can Asians break down barriers by really being global citizens, embracing inclusion and diversity, and making sure that what they have, they embrace it and strengthen it. Okay? For example, me, I'm known for not bringing people from my previous company to my current company. I'm not known for that. I am known for this is what I have. We strengthen this. If unfortunately people need to leave, people would have to go. But I work with what I have and we strengthen it and then we add on and build on and we just run. So I think there are a lot of Asians who are doing that, but it's just that we are not given the stage to celebrate that. And thank you for giving me that space to celebrate that and share that to the rest of the world.
Pleasure. Thank you so much. Quick burst. Most exciting HR innovation that you've seen recently. Don't give me the details. What things should I check out?
There's a lot of robotics, AI and all of that. It's there. But I think there's one that's into coaching. So how can AI and heart be together? Of course, it's not 100% heart or 100% AI, which is what I am positioning in AI. AI is augmented intelligence. It's human intelligence and artificial intelligence together. And there's one coaching technology now available, and look at that up.
Okay. And what is the one organization you tell me that I should check in Asia because they are pushing the boundaries of what's possible in HR? One organization.
Oh my God. The Jollibee Group. To me, it's more than the technology or anything, but pushing boundaries and expanding. As I'm sorry, it's a Filipino, but of course I will say a Filipino company. Yeah? But also how they're bringing out. Now, they are the owners of Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf globally, Tim Ho Wan globally. In the US, Smash Burger. They're putting a Jollibee in Italy, in Rome, in London, and everywhere else. So, and Jollibee is like your McDonald's. So,
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Lyn.